Welcome to 15-Minute Fundraising, raising money broken down in 15 minutes or less.
15-Minute Fundraising is brought to you by Blakely, your partners in fundraising and marketing, helping nonprofits break down barriers and get to the good stuff through integration and authenticity.
And we're your hosts, Waja and Maeve Strathy. What up, fundraisers, and welcome to 15-Minute Fundraising. My name is Waja.
And I'm Maeve Strathy.
And today, for this inaugural episode of 15-Minute Fundraising, we're going to dig into a mainstay of fundraising, DM, also known as direct mail.
Yes, I am a fan. I've been working in direct mail, and honestly, indirectly in certain ways for my whole fundraising career for the past 12 years, but especially the past 4 as I've been working at Blakely. And it's truly a fascinating part of fundraising. Definitely a mainstay, like Mo said. It actually has its roots going as far back in North America as just after World War II. It's said that the first direct mail campaign ever for a nonprofit was sent by the Easter Seals right after World War II. So everybody was kind of looking to expand their donor base and started to utilize mail for that purpose. So that's kind of where it's had its roots, and it's taken off over time. Especially, I think the first thing that kind of happened that revolutionized direct mail was actually the advent of the zip code, if you can believe that. So once I can't
even imagine being there at the advent of the zip code.
Right? And I think if I read this right, that it was in the 60s that zip codes and postal codes kind of came into the world and allowed for way more specific targeting for mail for households. So that was one thing. Obviously, the computer just took things off to the next level with the way that people could keep their databases and target with direct mail, and amazingly just kind of skyrocketed from there. Probably with its greatest popularity in the 90s. But anybody who thinks direct mail is dead is totally wrong. It's alive and well in fundraising.
Okay, but hold on. Because this concept of direct mail is dead, that's not an isolated one or two people making this statement.
No.
The reality is that, the donor base is changing. We have new donors coming out, and there is, of course, the constant quote-unquote holy grail of millennial donors who are coming in from a digital background, growing up in a digital age, who kind of perhaps do see direct mail as a thing of the past. So,
right.
As somebody who is an experienced fundraiser, how do you kind of respond to that reality?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think it's something that charities all need to be thinking about. The direct mail as an isolated channel on its own is not experiencing growth. So that's an important thing to state. So what we usually say is direct mail is not dead, but it doesn't stand alone anymore. And so it needs to be integrated with those other channels. So if you're a direct mail responsive donor who primarily, we're talking about 60 plus is the kind of the age that most responds to direct mail, then that's a great channel for you. If you're younger than that, you may actually still respond to direct mail, but we need to be on other channels. We need to be where our donors are. And when mail was the only way to get in front of a donor, direct mail had its heyday. Now it's still part of the pie, but it can't be the only thing that charities are investing in. There's no question about it.
But are charities even doing that? Because, look, every now and then you'll see an ad from a charitable organization. We see innovations in social media with things like Facebook's donate button in Canada, and more specifically and perhaps even more successfully in the US. We see new peer-to-peer fundraising kits coming out, giving people opportunities to connect with a base of donors on a variety of levels. But having been in this sector for a minute or two now, I'm still seeing that it seems like charitable organizations in the nonprofit sector aren't really taking advantage of the digital tools out there and integrating them with direct mail. It's still seen as we do this or that, or we'll do a regular package and then sprinkle in a little social here and there, which doesn't seem like a super strategic way to go about integrating with a new world of donors.
Right. No, I would agree with that. It's got to be integrated. Like I said, direct mail doesn't stand alone. So how are you surrounding this direct mail as one channel with a whole bunch of other channels that are all generally saying the same thing, trying to drive donors to take the same action, but fitting that message, that story, whatever it might be, per channel. Because the way you tell a story in direct mail on, a 2-page letter is going to be very different than the way you tell it by email, in a Facebook ad. If you're talking on Twitter, you've got a restricted number of characters. With direct mail, I mean, we're talking 250 to 300 words at least. That's a whole other way of storytelling. So I think that, you can't think of strategy by channel. You have to think of strategy and then figure out how to layer that onto different channels in the most effective ways per channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But see, you touched on something there that I think makes this a little difficult for some nonprofit organizations. And that's the idea of writing. Because, I mean, writing for direct mail, there are legends about this, right?
Yes, there are.
I mean, prophecies have Nostradamus and like direct mail, who knows?
Right.
But the point is that this whole concept of writing for direct mail is this legendary thing that only a fair few who are trained in a remote sect in the mountains of Tibet are actually capable of doing, So how do you take this legendary style of writing and translate it to digital, which has its own style of writing? Like, you have this story that you've written, it's good, you have it on your letter reply, you're good to go, but now you need to make it an email. Now you need to make it a social post. Right.
Now, it's a really good question, and it's interesting because the more I've learned about direct mail, the more I've learned about direct marketing. And direct marketing isn't something isolated to fundraising or to the nonprofit world. It's been alive and well in the for-profit world for a long time. And so I think actually direct mail best practices when it comes to copywriting actually have their roots in direct marketing and the direct mail done for, a good example of direct mail for for-profits is when you get those mailings that have you pre-approved for a credit card.
Yes.
That's direct marketing. That's direct mail. It's, totally different than the letters that I get, tugging on my heartstrings, inspiring me to donate to charities. But the concepts, the principles are really the same. So direct marketing at its core intends to motivate an individual to take immediate action. That's what it's about. So whether that's donate or buy or sign up or something, it's generally that's what you're trying to do. So when you're trying to get somebody to take immediate action in a mail appeal, you are utilizing the 250 or 300 words that you have to inspire them to take that immediate action. If you're doing it in an email, you may be using 100 words. If you're using or more, there's certainly no limits in email. If you're on Facebook, you are limited to a certain amount of copy. So how are you using those potentially 6 critical words to inspire somebody to take immediate action? That little puzzle is what fascinates me about direct marketing. And it's not limited to mail. I really think the principles you apply in the same way across the different channels.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like your message that you're putting out on Facebook in 1 or 2 lines or as a preview text on an email are the teaser words from the OE.
That's right. Totally. What you put on your outer envelope. I mean, we talk about open rates on emails. I love the idea of a world where we could actually sense open rates on outer envelopes for charities. That would be amazing, because all we know at the end of the day is how many people chose to make a gift. That's what we can track. We can't track how many people opened it. Emails we can, and that's one of the things I love about digital direct marketing. But basically, you've got that, I'll just use an example from a charity that I've worked with, BC Children's Hospital. How are we using those? We've got 5 words on the front. We've got 7 words on the back. How are we using those words to inspire, to pique curiosity, to make people curious and want to know what the rest of the story is, or want to take action immediately and get right into the package in order to do so? It's amazing that you can use that 1 word difference can motivate different action or more likely to open the OE. It's really the creative is a huge part of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there is one kind of perspective on DM that I want to dig into.
Sure.
And that is this idea of where DM is going into the future. And specifically, we've heard the idea kind of whispered around that nowadays, because we exist in such a digital era, DM and receiving a physical package of any kind is almost a premium in and of itself. Because, look, I mean, when you're looking at your donor base, you have different versions of direct mail sent to people at different levels, meant to either steward or solicit in different ways.
Sure.
So now we have a world where so many things are digital and expected to be digital. I mean, when does the fact that you're receiving something physical in and of itself become the premium?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think what's also interesting about the work that we do is that it's cyclical. Sometimes you have direct mail that's, got a white outer envelope and it's simple and straightforward and not overly designed. And then you have something with a big full color, full bleed image on the front. And that, for different charities at different times to different donors and different campaigns, you want to kind of cycle through that from the highly designed to the simple and beyond. And so in talking about that kind of cyclical nature of fundraising and direct mail, I also think about exactly what you're saying, that, for a certain time we became totally fatigued with all the mail coming through our mailboxes. Now, the mail that I get is sparse. Most of my bills are paid automatically with literally no paper exchanged. And so the mail that I get is actually now more precious than it used to be. But when I was younger, this was the case too. I remember, getting, if I got mail, it was from my aunt, and that was back when you could send cash through the mail, and I get like $20 in a birthday card or something. It was awesome. And then I went through a period of time where it was all bills and all boring, and I just didn't even pay attention to my stack of mail. And now I have less of it again, and so I'm paying more attention. So it really does go in cycles. And I know I've shared this with you before, and I wish I could remember where I got this stat, but there was a time a couple of years ago at least that that response to mail was actually trending upwards with kind of like the millennial generation. And it's exactly what you said. It's become premium. It's become a novelty again. Now, do I think that that's going to increase over time? No, not really. I think it's another cycle. And I think we're not going to get to a time where digital doesn't have relevance. It's only going to become more relevant. And I don't know how long we're going to be receiving mail. Environmental impact is something that concerns people. They think about it as junk mail and a waste of paper. So I think that potentially could be something that we see, definitely diminish over time how much mail we're sending. So it really does prove the point that you've got to be exploring other channels and figure out, in the absence of mail, where will you be? And in the meantime, when you have all the channels working together, how are they working together as optimally as possible?
Absolutely. And that's fair. That's completely fair. And so, I want to get tangible for a second.
Yeah.
Because, we've both had opportunities to work with not-for-profit and charitable organizations that are doing truly integrated digital campaigns that work with their direct mail pieces in order to impact, steward, and solicit their donors. So, from your perspective and your experience, and I'm putting you a little on the spot here, but if you had, and I hate these listicle style questions, but in this case, I do think it's useful.
Sure.
If you had 1, 2, 3, or even 5 tips for another fundraiser, another nonprofit organization to create a more integrated kind of system for their digital with their direct mail. So they're treating them less like two independent channels and more like one story told over multiple pages in multiple environments.
Right.
What would those be?
Right. Well, to go back to the basics for me, start with your insights. That's always got to be where you start. So what do you know about how your direct mail is operating? What do you know about how your digital is operating? And how can you get those two things to work together really, really well? And so start with the insights, start with what you know. That is key. And then think about, frankly, what's your message? What's your story? Because it's got to start there. It doesn't start with the tactics. What you're putting out on digital, what you're putting out in mail, those are tactics. So determine your strategy and your message first and have it start with insights and then move to that creative message. And then figure out, you want that message to be generally the same across channels, but not exactly the same. So think of it the other way around. If I received something through the mail and then got an email and they looked like they were coming from totally different organizations, that causes a disconnect. What it also does is avoids that moment. There's the rule of 7 in advertising. You need to see something 7 times before you take action. And that's part of what integration is all about. So I get a package in the mail and don't open it, see it, put it away, don't think about it. Then I get an email from the same organization, generally reflecting the same messaging, same creative. So now I've seen it twice. Then I see a digital ad. And then I see this on my desk again. And then finally I go to search and go to Google, type in the charity and end up making a donation. That's how people are behaving more and more. So think about that overall overarching strategy, what you want to tell people, what action you want to take, and then kind of break it up into bite-sized bits across those channels. So I really think it's got to be insights first, it's got to be strategy second, it's got to be message kind of third, and then tactics. And then how are you taking that message and making it work across all those channels, and then really having them all lead up to a singular proposition that you're making. And you can see that across every tactic on every channel. That's when you've got yourself a really good integrated campaign, in my opinion.
I love it. I love it. Well, friends, our 15 minutes are up. That is episode 1 of 15 Minute Fundraising. My name is Waja.
And I'm Maeve Strathy.
You stay classy, fundraisers.